look at the case details tab of your patient's file. Currently, we are still on the overview tab. I can tell that because that's the tab that's highlighted. In order to get to the case detail tab, simply click on the button here. If you're on an iPad or laptop, you can swipe right to left to get to the next screen. When you create a new patient's file and you go to their case detail, this is what this will look like, blank. So we're going to now create a new case. Be sure that you fill in the overview screen before you go into this tab, because some of the information from the overview screen will flow into here. All right, once I've clicked on the plus sign, I find myself on the billing preferences subtab of the case details. You can see that the case details has 4 subtabs. Mostly what you'll be setting up here on this first subtab are your billing preferences for your patients, CPT codes and ICD-9 codes. You also set up what's on the left-hand side here. The case type is for your own, it doesn't flow into any Superbill or CMS form. It's just for you to know at a glance what type of case this is. Again, there is an edit button here so that you can make this list your own. The invoice type, the choice is Superbill or CMS 1500. When you create an invoice in Accubase, it's always both, provided that you filled out the information for the appropriate format. So the reason why you would choose one or the other is because when you create an invoice, it will immediately get you to the Superbill view of that invoice or the CMS view of that invoice. I'm going to choose CMS here because that's more complex, and we'll take a look at that later, and so I'll select insurance. You can also decide here whether or not you'll be doing e-billing for this specific patient. If you think that you'll be filing electronically for that patient, go ahead and set e-billing to yes. There'll be some specific videos on how to do e-billing. This one is not going to be that. You also set up your referral physician if there is one. This is information that you would have preset under the gear icon when you were in preferences and settings. And then finally, you're going to select your codes. Again, these codes are also preset under the gear icon. And in terms of ICD codes, whatever codes you've selected as in-use codes are the codes that will show up here in the drop menu. When I click on description, I see my description. If I click on this area, here the code will actually be first. So I'm going to select a couple of codes for my patient here. And then here, we've preset, or one of the option under the gear icon was to preset some codes that were general to all patients, because as I mentioned in that video, these codes will populate your case when you create a case for your patient. So you don't want to have any specific codes. Same here, even though this is specific to this patient here, if there is a one-time code that you will be using for that patient, such as a first visit code, don't set up that code in here, because whatever you set up here will default to each invoice that you create for that patient. So a one-time code like the first patient visit is something that you will enter on your first invoice that you create for that patient. You'll just add it to whatever defaults to it, but don't preset it here. Now that we are here on settings that are specific to this patient, you will definitely want to enter your diagnosis pointer for insurance patient. Since we have diagnosis 1 and 2, it will be A and B. You can only have up to 4 diagnosis pointer here, and they point to whichever code relates to the treatment. You must use capital letters, A referring to line 1, B referring to line 2, etc. Right down below here, you also have the option of typing some kind of a comment that you would like to see on your invoice. This comment will not actually print on the invoice, but if there is something that you want to be reminded of when you create an invoice for this particular patient, go ahead and enter this message here, and it will then populate on the super bill. Same message for super bill. And that is it for the first part of this video.